Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ike's Political Minute. And hey, what do you know? Mike Pence has finally jumped into the 2024 presidential race. He is running against Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, and the many other GOP contenders. And now we are going to take a look and see how he might fare up in a potential matchup against Joe Biden. Yes, it is true. As we see from CBS, he has officially filed paperwork to run for president, kicking off his 2024 bid. And one of the things to note about Mike Pence is that while most other candidates, whether they be Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, or others, have really stepped back from attacking Trump, they're really worried he might attack them. He has gone out on the offensive, Mike Pence, to attack Donald Trump for what he has done in the Republican Party. As we see in The Guardian, in March of 2023, Mike Pence has said that history will hold Donald Trump accountable over the Capitol attack. So, in a way, we could see Mike Pence be more of a reversal to a George W. Bush kind of Republican who appeals to suburbanites, who appeals to evangelical Christians, but who also pisses off the Trump base. And that could also be a huge liability for him being able to win in 2024. Certainly, I do not think that Donald Trump is going to choose him as his VP pick if Trump wins the nomination, but let's say Mike Pence beats his former boss. Let's take a look. So I think that the West Coast would be safe for Joe Biden, as well as Illinois and the Northeast. For the most part, I think that Mike Pence, being the George W. Bush Republican he is, though, being more of a moderate kind of conservative who can give an olive branch to those disaffected conservative voters, I actually think he would win New Hampshire narrowly. So I'm going to give that to him. And also, his general appeal up in the Northeast, I think he'd carry Maine's 2nd congressional district by a likely margin, though still by a likely margin, Joe Biden would carry Maine at large. And yeah, I think Mike Pence would lock down the Rocky Mountain states, as well as the Great Plains states. I even think that because of his general appeal in the Great Plains area and to evangelical Christian voters, I think he would carry Nebraska's 2nd congressional district by a lean margin. And this is where he is perhaps the strongest. I think he would lock down the Bible Belt in his favor, as well as Texas. I think he would carry it by a likely margin. I mean, even Greg Abbott wasn't able to carry it by a safe margin, but I definitely think he would have a likely win here. And just because of his general strength in the South among religiously conservative voters, among suburban voters, I think he would win North Carolina by a likely margin, and Georgia by a lean margin, and Florida by a likely margin. All of these 3 states are generally conservative by nature. They just need the right candidate. And I think Mike Pence would be that kind of candidate. Now, I put Georgia as lean because although it did go likely for Brian Kemp, a conservative that they like, you have to understand that the Trump base is pivotal in this state and in the other 2 states. Like, both Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue failed in the Georgia Senate runoff races because they did not have the Trump base turn out for them in the same way that they would have in the regular election. Just Trump did not inspire those voters to come out. So I think that Pence, because of his strengths with evangelical Christians, because of his strengths with suburban voters, would still be carried across the finish line in Georgia, just not as much as he otherwise would have. And Arizona, it's pretty narrow, but I still think that Mike Pence would carry the state. He would carry it by a lean margin because, sure, he doesn't get the Trump base, which is critical for Arizona politics, but at the same time, I would say that they also like their rhinos. Arizona has more of a John McCain constituency that's willing to turn out. Like you saw Doug Ducey beat Mike Garcia by an enormous amount. Like it was just hard to compare, like 14 points. So Arizona is perfectly fine when it comes to moderate Republicans, and it was actually David Garcia that he beat. Nevada, though, I think Joe Biden carries that by a lean margin. Now, I've talked about Mike Pence's strength with evangelical Christians as a big bonus to his campaign, but it could also come with some costs in that he has signed in some very anti gay, very religiously strong laws that could hurt him with socially liberal voters, namely being the Restoration of Religious Freedom Act, which basically allowed any kind of public venue, whether it be restaurants or movie theaters, discriminate against people of the LGBTQ community if they cited religion as their reason. And Nevada has a lot of socially liberal voters, and I don't think they would be too impressed with Mike Pence's record there. So, while it is moving more red in general, I think it would land squarely in Joe Biden's column. And for the same reason that these states are generally dominated by more liberal, left moving voters, I think that Virginia, New Mexico, and Colorado would all go safely in Joe Biden's column. I mean, likely. Colorado would be safe, though, just because of how exponentially liberal it has become. I think that Mike Pence's appeal in the American heartland would land him strong wins in Ohio and Iowa. I think that this is where he really could shine, and I think he would do an incredible job. However, I think Joe Biden would land likely wins in Minnesota and Michigan. I think that what these states have shown is that you need to have the Trump base turn out for you, and if you don't, then you're going to lose. So that's where I think Mike Pence would really fizzle out. I also think Biden would carry Pennsylvania by a lean margin for the same reason. I think that his strengths against Mike Pence in this state would be strongest because Pennsylvania, you also really need the Trump base. Like you saw Mehmet Oz lose by 5 points against John Fetterman when most people were expecting him to win by at least 2 points. And why did that happen? It's because of a turnout drop in western Pennsylvania in the fracking belt. You see, Mehmet Oz, he did just fine in the suburbs. He did just fine in the areas around Pittsburgh, around Philadelphia. But the reality is that if you have the Trump base pissed at you, if you have them going against you, Pennsylvania is not going to go your direction. And for that same reason, that Mike Pence is kind of an establishment career politician, that he doesn't really have too much of an insurgency to his name, and that you really need the Trump base to come out. I think Wisconsin narrowly goes to Joe Biden and delivers him the presidency. This is a very close election, 271 electoral votes for Joe Biden and 269 for Mike Pence, but there you have it. This is my final map for the 2024 presidential election, should it come down to these two candidates. Thank you all for watching this video. Please comment down suggestions below, hit that bell, and subscribe, and I will see you all later.